The second game of the FIDE World Chess Championship 2024 between Ding Liren and Gukesh Dommaraju. Ding e4, king's pawn opening, trying to take control of the center. And Gukesh played e5, symmetrical response, also competing for the center. Ding played nf3, the knight develops attacking the e5 pawn. Gukesh played knight c6, develops his knight while protecting the e5 pawn. The two players are generally following opening principles. Ding bc4, Italian game with the bishop on an active diagonal. Gukesh played bishop c5, mirrors with bc5, targeting the f2 square and maintaining symmetry. Ding played d3, solidifies the center with d3, preparing to castle and avoid an early d4 break. Gukesh played knight f6, develops the knight to f6, attacking the e4 pawn and continuing natural development. Ding played nc3, develops the queen's knight, reinforcing the center. Gukesh played a6. Ding a4, win room on the queen side. Gukesh posts d6 to strengthen the center, keeping an eye on e5 and freeing up the bishop on g4. Ding's castle gets ready to keep the king safe. Gukesh plays h6, stopping bishop g5 and keeping options open. Ding played bishop e3, develops the bishop to a good square in preparation to exchange on c5. Gukesh played bishop e6, develops and offer an exchange to ease tension in the center. Ding played a5, gain more space on the queen side, eyeing future play. Gukesh played bishop xc4, exchanges bishops, simplifying the position and removing the potential strong attacker. Ding dxc4 tries to recapture with the pawn to stay stable and opens the d file. Gukesh castles to safety, completing development. Ding bishop xc5 captures the bishop. Gukesh dxc5 recaptures but has double pawn on the c file, a long-term small weakness. Ding played b3, strengthens queen side structure with b3 covering key squares. Gukesh played queen xd1, simplifies by exchanging queens, lessening Ding's attacking chances. Ding rook fxd1 recaptures, maintaining a central file control. Now Gukesh played rook a d8, activates his ruse on an open file, readying for central control. Ding played rdc1, doubles up rooks on the c file, poised to pressure. c7, Ding aims to dominate the c file, which could give him a long-term advantage if Gukesh's pawn on c5 becomes a target. Gukesh played knight d4, moves the knight to a powerful outpost. Looking over the center, this square is a great knight landing because the knight exercises central control over the squares c2, b3, e2 and f3, which curtail Ding's mobility. Following knight d4, if Ding plays rook displacement, Gukesh may set up games like f5 to attack on the king's side. Ding knight e1, retreating the knight with a view to challenging knight d4 later. The knight guards both c2 and d3 squares, from which Gukesh's knight could make further attacks. This leaves knight e1 in a passive position, retreating the knight from active play and temporarily ceding Ding control of central and queenside squares. Gukesh played rook d6 supports c6, reading to double rooks on the d file. The rook is now centralized on the d file, which may pose tactical threats, especially since the c1 rook of Ding is relatively inert. Ding played king f1, activates the king, crucial in the endgames. Gukesh played g6. With g6, Gukesh develops his king side and get ready for a potential pawn storm or piece maneuver on the king side. The pawn on g6 creates a solid defense around Gukesh's king, which make it harder to launch an attack on the king side. Ding played rd1, takes possession of d file and eyes potential exchanges. This move is mainly intended to tackle Gukesh's heightened activity on the d file. The rook on d1 can be activated later. At present, it remains inactive and defensive rather than posing any threatening attacks. Gukesh places his rook on the d8 square, doubling his rooks on the d file. This move increases the pressure on Ding's position and prepares to dominate the file. Gukesh can even think ahead to putting his rook to the king side soon and piling on more pressure on Ding's king. Ding f3 secures and prevents future knight's jump. Defensive advance pawn move attempting to restrict the activity of Gukesh's piece and open up some space for his own position. The move f3 prevents Gukesh from placing a knight on g4 where it could disturb his opponent with either poor pawn like h2 or making threats around the king. Central control. The pawn on f3 supports Ding's center, particularly e4 pawn, and bring some stabilization to his position. The maneuver also gives some space for the kings of Ding to reach g2 or f3 in case of need. And Gukesh takes the king's side kg7, which is a consolidating move, enhancing the safety of his king and preparing for more kingside maneuvering. By moving the king to g7, Gukesh put it in a safe place behind pawns, especially the pawn on g6, which provides excellent cover for the king. Moreover, this move is away from any check or attack on the king side. Ding played kf2, increasingly activates the king, maintaining his careful defending strategy in the game. He moves his king a little away from the center and in a safer square. While king f2 strengthens king safety, the position is not particularly active. Ding's king is not contributing dynamically to the course of the game and he stays passively defending. Gukesh played h5. Gukesh advances his pawn in the king side to develop some kind of influence and to prepare for future possible further attacks. h5 may encourage Ding to advance h4 in order to prevent Gukesh's piece from entering his position, but that could create weakness or openings for Gukesh's piece to invade. Knight e2 from Ding to a passively oriented knight square. It's aimed to bolster his place and prepare to defend or counterplay in the future. The knight from e2 supports key squares like f4 and g3, possibly defending Gukesh's expanding kickside pawn storm. Gukesh remains in a dominant position with active rooks, a central knight, and the possibility of creating the imbalanced pawn structure on king side. Ding plays against pressure without apparent counterplay. Gukesh plays knight c6, an unspectacular but decent and active move that brings his knight back into the center and reinforces his control of key squares, thereby enhancing his overall position strength. By placing the knight on c6, Gukesh strengthens his control over the central squares, particularly d4, e5 and b5. This helps to tie down Ding and creates more choices for piece coordination. Ding plays knight c3, bringing his knight back to more central square, aiming to increase his control over key squares and challenge Gukesh's piece. The move knight c3 helps Ding centralize his knight, controlling important squares like d5, b5 and e5. It also frees up his position, potentially preparing for future tactical threats. The knight on c3 puts pressure on Gukesh's knight on c6. Though for now, knight c3 doesn't immediately threaten anything and is more about reinforcing Ding's position. Gukesh knight d4 repeats, using the strong outpost. Ding knight e2 retreats again. Gukesh knight c6 repeats, signaling a possible draw for repetition. Ding played knight c3, recycles the knight one more time, provoking repetition. And Gukesh plays knight d4, leads to draw. The pieces are slightly in Gukesh's favor with knight d4, but the king and pieces were so limited on Ding's side that it might be thought that no real progress could be made without a blunder, and therefore the players would agree to draw. So the conclusion of the match is the game was strategically balanced. Ding maintained slight pressure, but Gukesh defended accurately. The Italian game led to a quiet positional battle and neither player overextended. Gukesh's strong knight on d4 kept Ding in check, ensuring equality throughout. This game illustrates high level maneuvering, the positional understanding, no clear mistakes, leading to a logical draw.